woman named Cynthia standing in an abandoned classroom, with the word help scrawled all over the walls. She suddenly hears a young boy's voice calling out, and starts following the sound. Cynthia walks through the dilapidated hall, and eventually comes across a dimly lit room, where a bald man is sitting facing behind. Beside him is a cage, where the terrified boy, Larry, has been imprisoned. Cynthia urges him to break free, saying the evil has no power over him. But then, the bald man turns around, and breaks a nearby glass, injuring Cynthia. He then steps forward, so Cynthia quickly tells Larry that they'll try again the next time. The next second, she finds herself in the real world. As it turns out, Cynthia is a supernatural psychotherapist. She has the ability to enter her patient's mind, and find the root of illness. But whatever happens in the subconscious also manifests in the real world, as shown by her injured hand. Later, Cynthia asks her daughter, Jordan, to look up all of Larry's childhood physical ed teachers. It is evident that the bald guy had harassed Larry, and he still hasn't been able to get over it. Shortly after, there's a knock at the door, and Jordan goes to answer it. She finds a nervous little girl who urgently wants to speak with Cynthia. Jordan doesn't remember scheduling an appointment, but she allows her in anyway. The girl says she's in danger, and that a certain Agatha Baker had told her to come here. Jordan notices burn marks all over her hands, and suggests that they call the police, but the girl asserts that only Cynthia can help her. She then finally introduces herself as Riley, and explains that she has been seeing a dark entity. Jordan asks where she got those burn marks, but just then, Riley freezes, as she claims the entity is right behind her. Jordan doesn't see anything, but seconds later, Cynthia shows up and witnesses a scary entity holding Riley, just as Riley's father arrives and forcibly takes her away from there. In the aftermath, a confused Jordan claims that something is really wrong with that girl, and her dad was hiding something. She now wants her mother to help the girl, but Cynthia vehemently refuses. The mother admits that she saw a terrible demon attached to Riley, so she doesn't want anything to do with the case. Later that night, Jordan finds Larry's physical ed teacher online, and sends the information to Cynthia. The two then have a heartfelt conversation, and Cynthia brings up how her husband lost his life when he got himself involved in a similar demonic case. A stubborn Jordan asserts that they at least have to try, but Cynthia makes it clear that the entity is very dangerous, and she won't let the past repeat again. That night, Jordan has a dream, where she sees the younger version of herself at home, and there's a ladder in front of her. But just as she proceeds to go up, she jolts awake in her bed. In the morning, Jordan goes out to meet her mother's friend, Agatha Baker, hoping to learn more about Riley. She doesn't waste time, and directly asks how Agatha knows the girl. And so, Agatha explains that Riley's father, Randall, is a carpenter, who once helped restore some of her old furniture. She mentions that he recently lost his wife, and that his daughter had visible burn scars on her hands. The other room to find a tool. Jordan grabs a screwdriver, and manages to open the door, which leads to a dark basement. With the help of her flashlight, she slowly ventures down while calling for Riley. Jordan thinks the evil Randall has imprisoned his daughter down here, but Riley soon appears and says she's not the one being imprisoned. And before Jordan can ask what that means, at home, Cynthia is starting to get worried because her daughter hasn't shown up yet. She soon gets a call from Agatha, who asks if they were able to connect to the sick girl. Agatha mentions that Jordan had stopped by her place earlier, and left to visit Randall's house. Realizing that her daughter is in danger, Cynthia rushes to help her. Meanwhile, Jordan awakens in the basement with her hands tied behind her back. She is also horrified to find a disfigured woman tied exactly like her. Seconds later, Randall arrives, so a desperate Jordan tries to make him understand that her mother has a special ability that can rid the girl of the demon. But Randall asserts that he's tried talking to multiple people, and it always ends with child support trying to take his daughter away. He then cryptically says that Riley must feed the entity, or else the entity will feed on her. Here, Riley approaches Jordan, and nervously places both her hands on her shoulders. Jordan feels her life being sucked out of her, as it turns out the demon is feeding off her energy. It touches both her arms, burning them badly. Once the ordeal is over, the demon vanishes, while the father and daughter return upstairs. Randall is now planning to dispatch Jordan into a lake, so no one can ever find her. But while he's busy making the arrangements, Riley steals his pliers, and heads down to the basement to save Jordan. She's still holding on to the belief that Cynthia can cure her, and Jordan assures her that she can. With this assurance, Riley gives her the pliers, before running away from there. Jordan then quickly uses it to free herself, as well as the deformed woman. But before they can escape, Randall shows up and holds them at gunpoint. Riley also arrives and stands in front of Jordan, begging her dad to stop all of this. The situation becomes even crazier when the deformed woman lunges at Randall, causing him to accidentally shoot Riley, resulting in her death. Almost immediately, Jordan experiences a splitting headache, before seeing the demonic entity right in front of her. It becomes certain that the demon has found a new host, so a horrified Jordan gets up and quickly makes a run from it. She manages to get out of the house, just as Cynthia and Agatha arrive in their car. As the two hug each other in relief, Randall quietly escapes in his vehicle. The scene then cuts to the police station where Officer John talks to Cynthia, while Jordan is being questioned by the detectives. John mentions that the other woman has been taken to the hospital. He also reveals that forensics have found other remains in the basement, suggesting that Randall had been doing this for a while. John is sure they'll manage to catch him. Meanwhile, the detectives try to question Jordan about what happened, but she keeps lying as she knows they won't believe her anyway. And then all of a sudden, seeing her like this, the detectives assume that she's lost her mind. Once back home, Cynthia realizes that her daughter is in danger, so she finally agrees to confront the entity. With Agatha by her side, she does her usual chant and enters Jordan's subconscious. Cynthia suddenly finds herself on a dark, desolate road, where she sees a newspaper article about how her husband drove his patient to kill herself. Following this, she chants some prayers and arrives in front of her previous house. This is the place she fears the most, and also where her little daughter's biggest trauma began. Cynthia then proceeds inside the house, where she comes across an old family portrait. But before she can go upstairs, the entity suddenly arrives and grabs her. In the real world, Cynthia's hand starts to burn red, so a worried Agatha slaps her back to reality. Later, Cynthia goes to the hospital to do some research, leaving her daughter in the care of Agatha, and a cop posted outside the house. Cynthia goes straight to her patient, Larry, who works as the receptionist, and asks him about Riley's mother. Although hesitant, Larry does some digging, and reveals that the woman, Samantha, died in this hospital last year, and her case became a really big deal. It turns out she was suffering from a strange flesh-eating disease, and a doctor named Whitaker was looking after her. Following this, Cynthia goes to the doctor's house to talk about Samantha. She admits that she has a patient with the same symptoms, and is desperate for some information. And so, the doctor opens up that Samantha's disease was very rare and aggressive, and it was deteriorating her health rapidly. In a matter of weeks, her outer appearance became grotesque, and even her internal organs started failing. Dr. Whitaker was devastated as he hadn't seen anything like this before, and was struggling to find what caused the disease. One night, while she was dying, Samantha whispered the words "something has me, it's right here with us, and it's hungry." She then asked the doctor to come closer, and grabbed his hand tightly. To add, Whitaker reveals that it felt like every part of his body was being sucked towards her. He finally understood that Samantha's illness was beyond science, and helping her was impossible. The doctor then rolls up his sleeve and reveals the burn scars left by the demon. Back at home, Jordan experiences the same nightmare. But this time, a terrifying voice appears and says "feed me," and when Jordan refuses, the vines suddenly attack her, jolting her awake. Now unable to sleep, Jordan senses someone in the house, and goes downstairs to investigate. She soon reaches the kitchen, where she shockingly finds the demon hiding in a corner, right before Randall arrives out of nowhere and abducts her. When Cynthia arrives home later, she finds Agatha unconscious, and her daughter missing. Realizing that Jordan has been kidnapped, she shouts at the shitty cop outside. The scene then cuts to Randall, who takes Jordan deep into the woods in his car. The poor girl has his hands tied and pleads to be released, saying she was only trying to help. But Randall makes it clear that it isn't about her anymore. Since the demon has been transferred inside her, he wants to make sure it starves here in the middle of the forest, and goes back to wherever the hell it came from. After this, Randall nails the coffin shut, and drops it inside a hole which he had dug earlier. Jordan screams and begs for mercy, but the unhinged man buries her completely, before casually walking away. In a surprising twist of the woods. Meanwhile, a worried John orders his unit to look for Cynthia's tire tracks, specifically in areas near the woods. On the other hand, Cynthia keeps following the signposts, and finally arrives at the exact spot, where she and Agatha start digging frantically. After a lot of hard work, Cynthia finds the coffin, and immediately breaks open some planks. She's horrified to find the demon on top of her daughter, who has become extremely weak at this point. Cynthia realizes that the demon fed aggressively on Jordan as it knew she was on the verge of death. Now, the only way to rescue her is by tapping into her subconscious and confronting the demon. At the same time, the police sirens are heard, so Agatha immediately starts diverting the attention of the cops, while Cynthia begins the procedure and touches her daughter's forehead. Cynthia manages to get inside her mind and finds herself at their old home, where Jordan is waiting outside the door. The mother tells the scared girl to stay here while she proceeds inside the house alone. The whole place has been dilapidated, and taken over by the demonic vines. Cynthia then proceeds upstairs, where she eventually comes across the same ladder that Jordan sees in her nightmares. Although hesitant herself, Cynthia gathers her courage and slowly goes upstairs, where she shockingly finds her husband who is unalived himself. The woman pauses for a moment to mourn him, then refocuses and continues searching the attic. Just then, the demon suddenly appears, and grabs her by the throat, trying to consume her soul. But Cynthia has come prepared. She gathers all her strength and presses her hand against its forehead, tapping into its subconscious. The next second, Cynthia finds herself in the demonic world, which has been fully taken over by vines. She slowly proceeds ahead with the help of a lantern. Meanwhile, in a shocking twist, we learn that Jordan is also traveling through her own subconscious. She finally gathers her courage to climb the ladder, and soon comes across her dad's lifeless body and breaks down in tears. Back at the monster realm, Cynthia manages to find the demon in its own hideout. She confronts it with a spear, ready to end this madness once and for all. But this is when John finds her in the real world and calls out to her, distracting Cynthia in the dark realm. The demon takes advantage of this, and quickly binds her hands and legs with its long tentacles. In the real world, John notices Cynthia struggling, but allows her to complete what she's doing. Meanwhile, Jordan also comes across her mother and the demon in the attic, so she anxiously removes the demon's hand from her mother, but it doesn't seem to have any effect. In the dark realm, the demon slowly proceeds towards a helpless Cynthia and climbs on top of her. But just when all hope seems to be lost.
Feed on this.
In a shocking turn of events, we learn that Jordan also tapped inside the monster's subconscious in the attic. She quickly frees her mother, and the two proceed to bludgeon the shit out of the hungry monster using their weapons. The mother and daughter only stop when it stops moving, finally ending its chapter forever. Back in the real world, Cynthia suddenly wakes up, and her daughter also starts showing signs of life. John is relieved to see them alive, and immediately calls for backup.